Good afternoon to you. It is Tuesday, July 30th at 3:47 p.m. Wanted to talk about football before practice actually starts happening and real reports come out. So give my opinion on a couple things that I'm really guessing about, to tell you the truth, before there are real reports on the ground about what's happening in practice as they lead to the season. Practice is going to start here, I think, either tomorrow or the next day. I can't remember, but it's just around the corner. Not that Purdue fans are going to get a ton of information like a fire hose or anything like that. That's not the way Walters does things. But there will be some information. There will be post-practice interviews, things like that. So there will be some real reports on who looks good and that sort of thing. Not that always translates to games, but it's something. And I think many of you are like me out there. You're just kind of salivating at the prospect of something real. And so I'm going to talk about it in a second. Before I do it, I want to thank our friends at Home Field. Head over to homefieldapparel.com, enter Boiled23 at checkout, get 15% off a t-shirt, a hat, a sweatshirt, something you really like. And of course, when you're on campus, you head towards the fire station. You go where your nose leads you. First, you'll smell the delicious burgers and the pub fare, and then you go into AJ's. But before you go that, you can go over to eatajs.com, order ahead, have a pint, have a burger, burgers, beef, beer. That's AJ's right by the fire station. Good folks. Can't wait to go to AJ's. Maybe I'll go on the day I move my son into school. Maybe I'll do that. Everything's different now. Now for the Boiler Gold Rush, they assign you a time and a day where you move them in, and it's not like the good old days where my dad and I would go up in the trusty Dodge Caravan, or actually it was a Town and Country, and sweat our asses off and move a couch up four stories. Yeah, we did that one time because the elevator was out, and we almost broke it we almost broke the couch in the elevator. It was a good time. Anyway, could explain it, but dumb story. Anyway, Purdue gets ready for practice, and I have some thoughts. And so the big thing I am looking at is, number one, this schedule is difficult, and I tweeted this out. There's a YouTube channel, I think it's called First and Long. Guys are based out of Georgia, I believe, and they talked about Purdue football and how impressed they are with what Purdue has done in the portal. And then they went further and said this is an intriguing team, and I just really liked their thoughts. They did their homework. I tweeted it. The link is there if you want to go watch some more content that's not Purdue people talking about Purdue football, but people that are just kind of giving their take of what they see and what they've read. And I really like the fact these guys did their homework. They obviously are high on the Georgia transfers. They see those guys as part of the intrigue for Purdue football. But what I want to talk about is guys that are dark horses for being impact players this year, and why they've got my attention, and they're guys that not a whole bunch of people are talking about. And so I'd like to do that right now. And so my biggest dark horse coming into the season, we all know who the guys are that are supposed to make impact. We all know there are players that have been good and should be good again. And then there are other guys that you just have heard good things. You know, the quad out of Georgia, those guys are all, there's a lot of hype around them. But one of the guys that I think is going to have a good season, just because I think the system lends itself to him doing well, is Shida Silla. And I know I'm Salah. I need to learn how to pronounce his name, and I'm sure I will. I'm sure it's going to be pronounced correctly. Dienert pronounced it correctly on a recent Golden Black podcast, and he did better than me, but I don't think he did well. So I think this is going to be a tough one for everybody as we get this into our vernacular. But the Boston College transfer, Silla, is a guy who he hasn't been real healthy during his career. If you go and look at his stats, he hasn't played a lot. He was playing pretty decent football at the end of the season last year. I think his last game played for BC, he had 4 tackles. But I think the system that Walters has, you're gonna be putting a lot of pressure on quarterbacks, and you're gonna have the ends trying to get in the face of the quarterback. And obviously there's a bit of a vacuum that needs to be filled there. And somebody's going to go get fat, if you will, as Jenkins on the other side will probably get double teamed from time to time. He's going to get that sort of respect again. And so I think Scylla is a guy that I have my eye on, and he could be one of those stories like looking for the right fit, the place to end his career. Had a tough couple of years, and maybe this is a good stop. According to our lads, which I love that they have, their guests on the two deeps. But they've got him as a second string defensive end, which really spells he'd be a rush down defensive end only. But if you look at the highlights of Scylla, he can play, and he's got good length. He's 6'4". He's just a guy that I think has potential to make noise. On the other side of the ball is a guy I've talked about a lot just because I like him, and I liked him out of high school, his athleticism. Jerron Tibbs out of Cathedral. I'm a Cathedral guy. That's not why I like him. I just like him because he's a real athlete who started scratching the surface last year as a wide receiver. And I think when the first and second priority receivers are covered up, somebody's going to get open. I think he's a guy that runs really, really good, crisp routes. He's got good hands. And like I said, that athleticism is a big deal. So Jerron Tibbs is a guy that I'm just kind of like guessing this is somebody who could do well. Granted, there are some people in front of him. This is a weird thing. While the wide receivers aren't a proven bunch for Purdue, there's a lot of talent there. And I can't hit that point hard enough. The wide receiver bunch, the wide receiver room is actually deep. And Tibbs will be a guy that comes in to spell people. I think he'll probably be on the two deeps to start the season. Same type of thing. He's three deep on our lads, but I think he'll be in the two deeps. And then finally, Joey Tonona, another kid from Central Indiana, from Zionsville, the great story I keep telling you about. And the more I hear about him, the more I hear about his progress coming off of not playing, being retired from football, the more I think Tonona will be a guy that makes impact. Now, do I have any insider information? No, I don't. Is this something you should, like if you're a betting person, go ahead and put money on something? I'm sure there's a way you can bet on all this. No, I'm not saying that either. But the reason I wanted to talk about it today was I wanted to get ahead of it before there was actually real talk about who was looking good in practice and that sort of thing. Another guy I think you gotta think will make big impact is Love, Reggie Love, who's been injured a lot. And Purdue last year was such a good running team. I think Love will get a lot of carries, and if he can stay healthy, he can be a great weapon for Purdue. And he's really a guy that I think Purdue fans are well aware that he's in the stable, because behind him there's nobody. But if they can keep him healthy and kind of put him on a pitch count, maybe he can do some big things out of the backfield. Another thing I want to talk about was I wanted to break the schedule down one more time before we dig into this a little bit more. I think we're getting close to Handsome Hours returning regularly, maybe in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'm hoping. Jay has been busy. His modeling career has taken off this summer. So obviously he can't do it. And Anish, he's very famous. Famous people do famous things, and both those guys have been busy. So if you want to make fun of them on Twitter, you should. I suggest it. So you should do that. Give them a hard time. Say, where's our content? Gosh darn it, where's our content? Football season's almost here. Now talk to me. But until then, you've just got me. And so I've broken the schedule down into 4 categories. Pretty simple. And then I've had put in a couple subcategories that I was going to talk about. The 4 categories are pretty simple. First one is the games that are almost, I don't want to say unwinnable, but these are tall orders. And I put this in the gotta steal one of these. If Purdue has any shot at getting to that 5-6 win mark, which I think that 5 wins is, I keep saying that, where I think they're going to be. But to get to 5, you're going to have some things go differently than the prognosticators think will go. But the gotta steal one category of Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. Which of those games are most likely to be upsets for Purdue? I would say Notre Dame. You got to put them there because that's a game that I think Purdue fans are looking forward to a lot, and it's at Purdue, and it's early in the season, so maybe you can catch a team off balance early in the season because they're not quite there. Talked to my dad this afternoon about that Notre Dame game. He said, this game, of course, all people my age, of course, remember this rivalry being something a little more fiery than it is right now. But it's still going to matter to Purdue fans. Ross-Ade Stadium will still be rocking, and it's one of those games where that might be a good chance for Purdue to steal one. Now on the other side, the other end of the season, Penn State has a tendency to start dropping games at the end of the season. I am not a Franklin apologist by any means. It'll be cold. Maybe they'll be disinterested coming off of a loss, or I haven't looked at their schedule too in depth. I plan on looking at the entire Big Ten, actually having LBD and I break it down before he goes back to school. Hopefully he's down with it just because he's a lot more analytical than I am. But that's another team that those two, I think, are possible stolen games for Purdue. Purdue could go get one that they're not supposed to have. The next category, I'd call these the tough games, the difficult games. They're just a little below that. And as we know, the schedule is tough, but we could call these winnable games. We wouldn't do that in the media or anything, but these winnable games include Nebraska, of course. If you're going to have winnable games, you got to have Nebraska, Oregon State, and Northwestern. These teams are all bowl teams. I think they're all very good. Oregon State is maybe the one that has the most question marks because of all the change in Corvallis. But that is a hard game. To me, I'd say that has the least chance of Purdue going and grabbing that game because of the significant road trip, because of it being so far across the country. Nebraska and Northwestern are both games that I feel better about, but I don't feel good about. I don't feel great about any of these first 8 games, to tell you the truth, that we're talking about. The schedule's a mother. We all know it. Next one are the need to win games, the games that I think the success of this season rides on these games. And these are also, there's some tough ones in here too, especially if you listen to the media. Illinois, Michigan State, and IU. Now, these are all 3 teams that Purdue needs to capitalize and go get them. Even though there's some of these games are on the road, you still need to go get the wins. We know Purdue handled Illinois and IU last year, didn't have Michigan State on the schedule, but those are good, a good chance to grab a win. And then finally, the should win category, 1 game, Indiana State. Tough schedule, we all know it, but I think if you last year was interesting because if you look at the schedule at the end of the season, you say, yeah, they lost games to better teams, but there were some games that didn't quite go according to the way you thought they would go. I think we all thought that too, but it's very, very difficult to predict what a team's going to look like when they're brand new, when everything is new, when there's so much turnover. It should be a little bit easier to start predicting things, but not the easiest thing at all for Purdue fans and media types alike. We got a couple people here live. Ted Berge says, good afternoon. How are you? Sam Lovejoy says, getting excited. We are getting close. You can almost smell it. Midwest Toker says, good afternoon. Boiler Dad, you too. Chris Harder. How are you, brother? Helmet mics. Yes, Chris. And I hope you check this out. I did put a YouTube short on about the helmet mics, but Chris wanted me to talk about this specifically. We traded texts, and then I buzzed through it. And I'm going to buzz through this. I got to leave really quickly here. But yeah, the helmet mics coming into college football. I said this in the short, and I'll say it again. I think this idea came into college football a little bit quicker than it would have if the Michigan scandal hadn't happened. But this is one of the very few things that I think is a big improvement from pro football trickling down to college football. I think this is a good thing. And I think this will be something that I think Purdue will embrace. And Coach Walters has talked about over and over that change is part of college football. He's trying to embrace change, do what he can to be out in front of it. And this is something I think will be a very, very good thing for Purdue. Again, I look forward to Hudson Card playing this offense again. I look forward to seeing what he does with another year under his belt and a year of practice, off-season practice, where he's completely comfortable with the playbook according to every account. And this is another way where Hudson Card will benefit. I talked the other day. I think Jenkins will be the other guy with the mic in his ear, with the speaker in his helmet. Pardon me, with the speaker in his helmet, not the mic in his ear. And Jenkins will probably be that defensive captain who will be getting the play straight in, I would believe. I haven't heard that confirmed yet, but I think the defense will maybe make more adjustments, but that's really not how Walters plays the defense before the snap. If you look, it's a player's defense. There's a lot of man matchups and then guys going out and making plays. Part of the reason the defense struggled so mightily last year, and part of the reason I think they're going to make such a leap this year, because you'll have guys in a better position to actually play and match up. You have guys that can play now. You have guys that are bigger and stronger. You have more guys all over the field. It's not just a couple peppered in. It's an entire defense, and there's depth. So there's a lot of things to look forward to. So there you go, Chris. Well, that's a good enough answer. Ted Berkey says helmet mics are only for a few players. Wish it was available to all players. It's just 2, I believe. Just one, the captain on offense and defense. And if guy gets hurt, then the next guy gets it. One of their guys. I think they announce it to the officials. Big Ben Kolzinski says the prognostications are severely underestimating Purdue. Got healthier, got older, got worse. I'm not buying it. This team may not be a bowl team, but they're going to be better. And I completely agree with you, Ben. Ben is always smart guy. Ben is a insider media type. But also, he's a guy that studies this too much like we all do. And I think he sees what we see, and that is this is a drastically different Purdue team, a better prepared team, and a much more physically ready team. Walters will have him ready, and he's already talking about that the attitude of the team being ready and guys having a chip on their shoulder. You got a bunch of competitors. The next question is, how well are they gelling? That's a big question, too. Brock Stepler says, excited for this year. Same here. Eddie Money says, boiler up. Ted Berkey again. Look for the football hype video as a response to the schedule. Look at the football hype video as a response to the schedule. I don't understand what you're saying there, so I'm sure it's easy, and I'm just simple-minded. Brock Stepler again says, First and Long did a great video. Yeah, they did a great job. Chris Harder again says, I'll check it out. Jay Westfall says, Houston is here. And John Younger says, Houston is here. Hammer down, Houston's here. Why am I so slow on the uptake today? Maybe somebody can explain it to me. And John Younger finally says, best offensive line too. Yeah, the offensive line is very deep. And there are a lot of guys. To me, there are a lot of guys that are going to make a big difference compared to last year, with guys playing out of position all year, guys having to fill in with injury. Gus Hartwig being able to play center all year is a huge deal. I said that. I kind of pointed that way at the last QuickCast. I think that's the difference between an abysmal season this year, record-wise, and a respectable good season, is Hartwig being there all season. He's been durable most of his career. Last year was a tough start, but Hartwig being an anchor in the huddle, that's a big deal. So I'm excited about that. But outside of Hartwig, you have a lot of talent, and you have a lot of guys that played a lot of football, even those who weren't in Purdue uniforms. So a lot to be excited for in the trenches, and that's where games are won, as we all know. Coach Rowe had a great statement about schedule in a hype video released by Purdue football. Felt like running through a wall. Okay, yeah, Ted, you're talking about that video, the workout video where he was yelling out at the players and they're in kind of a half circle. Check it out on the Purdue football Twitter feed. It's pretty cool. I still don't understand why guys wearing heart monitors, and I know that this is the company issuing those, but I am not a big fan of this sports bra look at all. I call me old-fashioned, but goodness gracious. We used to wear heart monitors in the early 2000s, late 90s, that were just a strap across the chest. And I'm sure these are better than those with all the info that they're getting back to the team. But goodness gracious, the optics for me are tough to swallow. I know I sound like an old guy. I'm sure some of you guys are going to say, don't worry about it. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of those videos out there. I'm just not. I love the fact that you've got a team that looks dialed in, though. So they'll look a lot better in uniform, in my opinion. So, but that's about all I got. True QuickCast done in under 20 minutes. So you can go and have a great afternoon. Enjoy the weather in Central Indiana. It's beautiful outside. Have a great day. God bless you. Hammer down. We'll see you soon. See ya.